Thank you for tuning into the Radicards podcast on Radicards.com. I'm your host, Patrick Guarino, and I have my buddy Ryan Daly joining us today. Hey, Ryan, how's it going?
Hey, what's up? Good to be back.
Hey, welcome. We have kind of a fun little agenda today. We're going to be obviously talking or touching on the series so far, and we're going to talk about um, hamburgers, which is very key to discuss in podcasts. Everybody knows that.
Yes.
Current auction happening at Heritage Auctions right now, and a healthy Ohtani auction. And Ohtani's always been very popular topic this year for obvious reasons. So let's jump right into it. Now, we've been fans of things growing up for various reasons, that we're just hyped on a player or a set or a team. Sometimes some of us go as far as to get these things tattooed on our bodies. One Braves fan got a tattoo of Ronald Acuna Jr. on their wrist right after the memorable Grand Slam from the NLDS. So, I looked at the tattoo. It's decent, right? I mean, it's
tasteful.
It's tasteful, I guess. And so, but I just think of it like, that's on you forever, dude. Like, forever. And the Braves didn't even make the World Series that year. A couple of years ago, when the Mets were a contender for the World Series champion, and somebody thought it would be a good idea to get Mets World Series champions tattooed on their body. And this was before it was decided who was going to win, and they actually ended up losing. And so I think of these things and I'm like, that's a good, nice little conversation starter.
I admire the confidence of these people. As someone who's thought about a tattoo, I've considered many different things. Never have I considered someone's face, regardless of whether they're a baseball player or whoever they are. And I've never considered a wrist or an arm or something that's visible if I'm just wearing shorts and a t-shirt. So getting the Mets World Series tattoo is a very confident move, and getting this Acuna tattoo is also very confident.
But you got to remember, like, Acuna was after the fact. Like, this person's not getting Acuna tattooed on before the Grand Slam,
That's true.
And it's not event specific. Like, it's just a picture of Ronald Acuna with a signature underneath.
Yeah.
But if you just wait, like, timing is everything, man. If you just wait for something to happen, then you can celebrate the result in tattoo form and be okay. But if you do it ahead of time, there's kind of really no need for that, because you don't know what's going to happen. There's no outcome, guarantee. So, like, the Mets tattoo that now is an error, it could have been avoided very easily. Just wait like a week when the series is over and be done with it. Like, why'd you go out and do that ahead of? It just doesn't seem to me. That seems like a very an easily escapable error. But that's
my opinion. A lot of in the playoffs for a lot of the major sports, teams will print like World Series champ hats or T-shirts, or like playoff champions. For both teams, because and so I feel like the Mets World Series tattoo is like an extreme example of that. And I think you can still buy some false merchandise that say, a certain team won the World Series in a certain year, because there's a lot of that stuff printed, and if it's supposed to not be released, obviously,
right.
But some of it does leak out. I'm sure that's a weird niche collector's market, but the tattoo is kind of an extreme example.
Totally.
But the Acuna thing is it's tasteful. It's not obnoxious, and if the Braves have had some rough luck in the recent years, and I'm sure that Grand Slam was a huge moment for Braves fans. And I myself personally am a little upset that they're not further into October. I think they're a really fun team to watch. It would have been fun to see Acuna face the Dodgers or the Brewers, or but
well,
it is at this point.
We'll see him another year,
He's so young. I mean, this is his rookie year.
Yeah.
And, that tattoo might look really good in 5 or 6 years.
Or it might look like just
Or
horrible. You know, I mean, tattoos are funny because you can get them all colored up and make them look nice in your younger years. But when you get older, all that stuff's going to turn green, man. And I don't know if the pigments have changed, like technology's changed, where the inks, they can stay colorful longer. But in my experience, the people I've known who have had colored tattoos, and I'm not saying this gentleman has a colored tattoo, it's very standard. So I'm talking more about like those of us who do, we have to get them touched up from time to time. So I'm not sure if the pigments of the colors actually remain over time longer than they have in the past. You know, I haven't really been studying up on my tattoo industry knowledge, but it's
you haven't.
It's just one of those things where I think like, might as well get green if it's going to end up green, you know? It's like,
yeah.
I don't know. I just think about this. Anyway, moving on. The final 4 teams that are still in contention, Red Sox, Astros, Dodgers, and Brewers, and you mentioned before we started recording, was that it's very similar to last year's run of teams.
Yes, I would say with the exception of the Brewers, obviously, we're sort of left with the Red Sox and the Astros and the Dodgers, which can't, hate on them for that. They're obviously, all 3 of them are amazing. All 4 of them are amazing teams, but
right.
Considering what we sort of had right around the time of the wild card games, we had the Rockies, we had the Brewers, we had the A's. Like, I think those were really fun teams that would have been cool to see deeper into October. But obviously, the cream of the crop sort of rises to the top as the month continues. Actually, I read a cool fact today. If the Astros and the Dodgers go back to the World Series this year, it'll be the first time 2 teams have gone back-to-back since the Dodgers and the Yankees.
Oh,
and I want to say in
cool.
late 70s, like 78, 79, like right around that era, like Reggie Jackson kind of era. So it'd be historic if the Astros and Dodgers go back. And I wouldn't be surprised because they're both looking super strong. I think both those series are tied right now, 1-1. So they're going to be contentious. And there's another interesting fact about these 4 teams that I'll let you get to.
Yeah, so there's been one player in baseball thus far who has played for all 4 of the teams that have reached the postseason this year. But in any time in history, for the 4 teams that reached the postseason, this year is the first year where there has been one player who's now retired who has played for all 4 of these teams. And it's Mark Loretta. He was like a pretty good utility player back then. So he's played for the Red Sox, Astros, Dodgers, and Brewers. Kind of a fun little fact, to see that. Like, I used to, watching like tidbits on the sports channels and then reading the backs of baseball cards. There's always some random fact. First player to have 3 consecutive years of, fill in the blanks of whatever random statistics. And I'm like, there's got to be some algorithm or some function that creates these random, like these, like, oh my gosh, he's the first. And some of them are kind of like not impressive. First player to have 2 years of over 10 hits, 2 runs and 1 stolen base and, been at 5 at bats or something. I mean, that's being facetious, but you kind of get the idea that like some of these things are just like, I guess that's impressive, or it's just like, hey, I've got a little bit more line of text available for me. Let's throw some more syntax in there, and then they just
a lot of them are
kind
of reaching. They reach for certain impressive, quote unquote, impressive statistics, but they do. I mean, this is a tradition that goes back into baseball cards, and I would. It's fun to think about the guy whose job it is to find that stuff before computer models and databases were set up for this things where you could be
human error though. Like, how easy would it be to like mistake that? And like, oh, are you sure you checked the right database because we have this other database? And it's like, oh crap, it's already been printed. So like, I think about like before computers, it must have been erroneous at best.
Well, if Mark Loretta played in the 50s and he had a card in 1956 tops and they wanted to put a fact about him, someone would have to go find this fact because this is arguably like the most interesting fact about him. And I can't imagine what that process is like, just digging through pages and pages of statistics and player information and player history, but that's what they had to do back then, I guess. And I don't know, all the Topps flagship products still do the weird, quirky player information. Some of the more premium products, I don't know if they do that, but
there was the one year where on the back, I think it was 2009, where they had the 7 degrees of Mickey Mantle. It was like they would link the player to Mickey Mantle in 7 different steps, which I thought was really cool. That was really cool. I think it was 2009. I don't remember. I have to go back and look, but I thought that was really impressive that they did that. Patrick lives on the planet Earth. So did Mickey Mantle. I don't even know how they would link that. Like, how would they? I mean, before computer generation, gosh, the arduous task of trying to find links from 7 different degrees to some other pro baseball player was got to be very difficult and time consuming.
I can't.
Some other cool fact about Mark Loretta: his name is phonetically perfect. It's probably impossible to mispronounce. Mark Loretta.
Loretta. Yeah.
There you go. There's the other fact about Mark Loretta that's impressive. So, moving on here. So, interesting fact here. Since the Brewers won against the Dodgers on this past Friday, George Webb restaurants offered free hamburgers, which is something they hadn't done since 1987. One man who got a free hamburger in 1987 actually still has his frozen in a bag, and he plans to auction off. I guess he had it notarized for authenticity. Could you imagine showing up at your bank to have something notarized? There's some banks notarized, so that's why I say. Or you could go to the DMV.
Yeah.
And a couple guys ahead, I'm yeah, I've got to notarize this, paper for this government contracting job, or I've got to notarize, X, Y, and Z to make sure that, fill in the blank, some professional administrative, typical paperwork. And the guy shows up with this bag with his rock solid frozen hamburger. He's I want to make sure that this is authentic, So I'm here to notarize my hamburger. I mean, how often does that happen? Something like that, it's a once in a lifetime thing. So tell me about your career in banking. Well, let me tell you this one time this guy came with a hamburger and he wanted me to make sure it was authentic. It's just a very interesting conversation starter at a house party or something.
I wonder how much he'll get for it.
Well, it was free, so anything he gets is going to be a profit, right? But I wonder if he'll get anything for it because it's a frozen hamburger. Who's going to want that? It's going to be really interesting to see where that goes. I don't know if you remember, in 2010, there was there was hype online for toast that had shapes that looked like Tim Tebow in the toast. And because portions of the toast weren't toasted evenly and those portions looked like Tim Tebow kneeling, and it was listed on auction style on eBay and it pulled in $1,000, there were there were McNuggets that sold that looked like a celebrity's face. I don't remember who it was now looking back on it, but those sold too for absurd amounts of money. I mean, it's almost like a joke, It's I'm making money because I know it's a joke. It's kind of like Sharknado. Everybody knows those movies were made to be totally campy for the reason of bringing in money because people knew that they wanted to go see them because of how campy they were.
Yeah,
they're money makers on the very premise of being campy, and that's kind of I think what happens here with the auctioning off a frozen hamburger or selling a piece of toast. There was a bottle of air that was sold on eBay one time. I mean, just absurd things. Just absurd.
Yeah, it's kind of a novelty, I suppose. I guess from a collecting standpoint, I can't imagine how many cheeseburgers they gave away in 1987.
Probably a lot.
So I assume it's in the thousands. And so from a collector's standpoint, it's not that rare of an item. And I guess it's maybe a little impressive that he held on to it for this long and got it, notarized and all that. But I'm not in the market, to say the least.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm definitely sure.
I wonder how many people are man, I can't wait to get my hands on a 1987 original George Webb cheeseburger. You know, like they got a checklist. You know, it's like 51 Bowman Mantle. You know, 89 Upper Deck Griffey. You know, 2001 Albert Pujols Bowman Chrome Redemption. And then 1987 George Webb Frozen Hamburger.
Yes.
You know, and some swizzle sticks at the bottom just for a throw-in.
Yeah. Actually, I mean, considering the preservatives they probably used back in the late 80s, you could maybe still eat it if you reheated it.
Yeah, and check this out. I bet he didn't have to freeze it, and it would still just look exactly the same as he did if he just left it on like a bookshelf for 31 years.
It would just be the most expensive fast food cheeseburger you've ever purchased, but you could probably still eat it if you were the lucky purchaser of this cheeseburger.
Oh, if you want to be the buyer of the buyer of the frozen one, right? Yeah.
The buyer, whoever. If someone does bite on this,
hopefully it's somebody who's hungry and they can make use of this thing, right? Speaking of auctions, is that Heritage Auctions list? They recently listed the number 1 on PSA Registry, 1948 Leaf set, which includes the highest graded examples of the Robinson, the Musial, the Williams, and the Page. I mean, this is going to be a serious auction. And I often wonder, like, when these auctions go up, you know, like, what is the reason for selling? You know, because if you're number 1 on such an iconic set at that grade, like, there's got to be some major, huge, like, personal happening that is requiring you to sell this monumental set. Or it could be the case that the gentleman has decided to pursue something even more expensive. And he thinks that the sell-off of this set will give him the return that he will, because this is going to make well into the $1 million. I'm almost certain of it. You know, and so, you know, is it to upgrade into the next project? You know, maybe he wants to do. Maybe the seller is like, I have to finance the 1909-11 T206 set that just sold because I bought all the cards. You know?
Yeah.
And I have to sell my 48 Leaf set to make sure I can buy that because it's just upgraded. Or maybe he's like, maybe I want to buy out that Wagner. But it's really cool. That's a beautiful set, the 48 Leaf. A lot of color, interesting dimensions. It's just very iconic in a way. And I really appreciate the Leaf set from 48. I don't have anything yet in that set, but there's just so many great cards to choose from. And you can grab, you know, Warren Spahn for not that much, you know, in like a 3. And so it's very accessible, I think, for a lot of people in low grade. I don't expect to own the Robinson, Musial, William, or Page in any high grade ever, but if I could get ones of any of those, I'd be happy. You know.
Yeah, I've seen the Ruth a few times in hobby shops, which is kind of interesting because he didn't play baseball in 1948, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, products put vintage players in their products all the time.
Sure.
But yeah, the Ruth is a huge card. And then the ones that you mentioned, the Robinson, the Musial, Williams, and the Page, those are also big cards. And this is like the second big vintage auction listing we've seen this year.
Well, that we've paid attention to. There have probably been others, and we just haven't even noticed. But like I follow Heritage on Twitter, and so like I keep up with what they're up to, and I happen to know a couple of fellas that work there, and so it's like, in passing, I get exposed to like kind of what they're up to. But I mean, Heritage is a very notable, reputable, credible company when it comes to high-end baseball cards, and so I'm completely pleased to watch these. I'm not going to buy any of them, but it's just stuff like this is just fun to watch. And I always say that if you can't finance it, you can at least be an observer, and being an observer is good because you can pay attention to what's in the market, what's out there, and you can learn like, okay, well, maybe this is my first experience, you know, with 1948 Leaf. Like, what does it look like? Who's in the set? How big is the set? How condition sensitive? What's the centering look like, generally speaking? You know, who are the rarer cards? You know, and so it doesn't mean you have to always buy when you're shopping. You can just window shop and enjoy that as it is.
Yes, I would recommend. I believe we've recommended this before, but if you subscribe to the Heritage newsletter and like the PSA Insider newsletter, it's all high-end stuff, but like you said, it's fun window shopping, and it's informative window shopping. because you get to learn things that you may not have known, and you get to see like cool vintage hockey jerseys for auction.
Right.
It's just sort of things that you might not be aware of, and it's if you're a serious collector in any sense, I think you should be as well versed in this sort of in the vintage world as possible.
Yeah, and it's just kind of fun to like, I don't know, like see what's happening sale wise. Like, okay, so Page is always a high dollar end price in any condition, and from the 48 leaf set. I know a guy who was jonesing for a 48 leaf Page for a number of years, and he just ended up giving up and getting the Bowman example into his collection because he just was like couldn't finance the multiples of thousands of dollars to get a Page into his collection in any condition. And so it's one of those sets that's, depending on the card, it can be within reach or well out of reach, depending on your income, obviously. But for a lot of us, we're not going to end up with a Page. And so it's nice to see, like, okay, what are they selling for? Like, what's the going rate for that card in that condition? Or, what's the low end and what's the high end, and what can I expect to see in the market? What are the rare grades? And so when you see something that's number one and it's vintage, it's going to get interesting. And so the 1948 leaf set in number one grade, I mean, this is like super cherry condition stuff that you just don't see very frequently. And if anything, it's just knowing that you're probably not going to see it anytime soon again. There's something to be said for that, that like you can like have a look at what's going to happen. I mean, when I saw a 52 tops Mantle and a 9 out in person, I mean, it's something to marvel at, because I don't expect to own it. I don't want to own a 9. I'd be happy with a 1, but it's just it's interesting to watch this stuff. It is. It's fun. So there you have it. Heritage Auctions listing the number one 1948 leaf set in the PSA registry, which includes the highest graded examples of the Robinson, Musial, Williams, and Page. Moving on, we got the Ohtani 2018 Bowman Paper Platinum 1 of 1 that was pulled and then originally sold for $15,000. It was an accepted offer. It's surfaced again. It's been graded, and it's got $20K OBO option on it. Now this would be a great card to have. It certainly works with my collection because it's not autographed. It's like the next best thing from the Superfractor. Thoughts?
Is this the BGS 9?
Yeah, it's the one you have there on you can look it up right now if you want. It's there.
So I'm showing a buy it now of 14.5.
Oh, it's come down?
Yeah, interesting.
I think the predictability of this card, where we are in the season, Angels aren't in the postseason. He's going to be Tommy John. We're starting to see it down, it's going to be a level off for Ohtani stuff, I think, for the next 6 months. Might be a nice time to buy. This would be a great card to have. I don't know what kind of offer would be acceptable. I think probably I'd accept $7,500, but hey, that would just be me. But this is just one of those cards. It's like, gosh, what a nice card to have. It's got that like refractive foil technology. It's not autographed. It's got that awesome iconic photo of him. This would be the one I'd want in my collection.
It's cool.
This is the one. This is the one I'd want to own. I
didn't even know the Platinum 101 was a thing until I saw this auction.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I guess it's too bad it didn't come in a higher grade, but
Oh, it's so funny. It's so funny that people say that. Like people complain about one of ones. We should talk about this actually because
the
one of one thing is interesting because it's the only one. It's the only one the market's going to ever get of anything. Of one of one, that's the one. Deal with it. And people complain, oh, it's too bad. It's never going to come back at 10. I was like, well, then wait for the next one that comes around.
Yeah.
It's a one of one. You're not going to be able to do that. Sorry. I think it's okay to complain about condition when there's like a billion in the market, like anything in the junk wax era. Like I wouldn't touch anything 9 or below. I just want 10s. But with one of ones, you kind of have to just be grateful for whatever it comes back as. It doesn't matter. It's a 9. Like it's the only one we get to have and get to enjoy. Be happy you just get to see the thing. I just think that there's no reason to complain about condition when it comes to one of ones because it's that unique. It's the only one in existence, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
I find it interesting when people complain about condition when it comes to 1/1 cards. Like, oh, it's probably a 6 at best. I was like, well, so it's the only one in existence. Who cares if it's a 6? It's the only one you're ever going to see like that, you know. And once it's sold, and you might not ever see it again, you know. There's always that conversation of hyping cards because of people's, you know, like grading them high because of the hype. You know, like did Beckett grade this superfractor intentionally high because of the hype and to make it even more hyped? You know, there's always those conversations. Ethically speaking, I can't account for anybody else's standards, but my own. But you know, when it comes to certain cards, some of them just look good slabbed. You know, they just look good in slabs. Like this platinum looks awesome in a slab. If it came back a 9, cares? I love it. It looks awesome next to that silver flip, you know. And so I just look at it as like, just be grateful you get to see the darn thing.
Yeah.
You know.
That's true.
Yeah.
The slabbing is something I've come a little more comfortable with.
Yeah.
I haven't really been slabbing a lot of my cards over the years, but I have recently, just because, like you said, the way they look. And it's just, from a storage perspective, it's just something you never have to worry about. It's like it's slabbed, put it away. You know, a lot of the other storage options can be a little fickle. You know, if you have a flood, you have a fire. I mean, obviously a fire is going to take out a slab, but you know, a slab is just, it's like good peace of mind, and it looks awesome. It's a bit expensive, but I think if the card is worth it to you financially or emotionally, I would go through with it for sure.
Yeah, and they make, you know, like graded card boxes. I own a bunch of them myself because I have a relatively modest graded card collection, but I appreciate slabbed cards. Some guys are, you know, they don't any interest in slab stuff. They're just like, I don't do the slab thing, I don't do the graded thing. I'm like, all right, well, more for me, I guess. But I can appreciate cards being slabbed, especially 1/1s. 1/1s really don't need to be slabbed, I don't think, but they look nice in these cases, and I just like them. I think BGS's cases look really good too. But you know, this particular Ohtani card, it's interesting that it's already dropped $5,500 for the asking, and then still has an OBO option. 26 watchers currently. Don't know how long this is going to last. Or where it's going to sell, but it's going to be fun to watch. And it's still interesting. Ohtani stuff has obviously come quite a bit down. I think that can be chalked up to two things. One, the market's softened a little bit on his stuff, knowing he's not in the postseason and he's hurt. Two, the amount of product that has been pumped into the market since May. I mean, it's just mind-boggling how often something is released, and then the superfractor's pulled, and then it sells, and all the other, like, just plethora of variations and parallels. And I mean, it's almost like Ohtani rookie cards aren't that big a deal. You know, there's so many of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, but they are superfractors.
Those are nice.
Yeah, they
those
are
cool.
really
nice. So that covers this podcast. Ron, you have any final thoughts?
Looking forward to this coming week in playoff baseball.
There you go. Yeah.
I think the next podcast will have a lot of relevant topics to discuss.
Sure.
Potential World Series berths. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got for now.
Good stuff. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in to the Radicards podcast on radicards.com. I'm your host, Patrick Greeno. And until next time, enjoy collecting.
If you like this content, please subscribe. Thank you. Enjoy collecting.